Hey, Marcus House with you here, and some very sad news today. It seems that the competitor space agency, NRS, tested a new form of rocket fuel with their new V9 engine, the ISP of which by far exceeds all prototype engines invented by the crew at the Kerbal Space Center. Dannie Kerman was set to do a test burn from Kerbin to Eve, but midway on the transfer to Eve, disaster struck. While doing a mid-course correction, the engines were unable to be shut down and all manoeuvre controls had frozen. The only thing Dannie could do was wait until all fuel had been expended. It is a terrible day for all Kerbal kind as we now find Dannie alone in a retrograde orbit between Kerbin and Eve, hurtling 20,000 meters per second in the opposite direction to Kerbin's orbit. Dannie has now accepted his fate. There is no hope of rescue. No hope of rescue, huh? We'll see about that. Now here is the rub. The crew at the Kerbal Space Center so far have only developed their space agency this far. We are running low tech here and we will rescue Dannie and the world will watch in awe as the underdogs come out victorious. So yes, the challenge we have here of course is trying to rescue using just these low-tech parts. It's going to be very difficult. We are going to need to develop quite a special vessel. And here it is here, you can see using only those low-tech parts. These solid rocket boosters are going to help punch us there off the launch pad. And yes, we are going to be able to hopefully do this entire rescue just with this vessel. It is going to be a long mission, so we have Jeb here. We're also taking our friend Bill with us just to keep us company and to also allow the Kerbal engineer readouts to be on screen as we do this mission. So as we ascend here, you can see that I'm using only the skipper engines with this solid rocket boosters. That's because the mainsail engines have not been unlocked yet. That requires a research and development center at level 2. So in my opinion, that is not a low-tech part. So there go the solid rocket boosters. We are now relying only on those skipper engines, and that's why the ascent here takes quite a while. The outside fuel tanks are feeding into the central core with those external fuel ducts, so we've just released that there. Those skipper engines don't have a huge amount of thrust, not like the mainsail engine. They're really not designed to launch such a massive vessel, but we need a huge amount of delta V to actually achieve this rescue. Not to mention that it is the only option that we had in low-tech parts, not unless we're going to use the very tiny LVT-30 Reliant engine or even the swivel engine. They are not going to help us at all with a vessel like this. Just circularizing our orbit, we had enough fuel to get this entire thing to orbit and just a little bit more, so we're going to ditch this just after we start our burn to Jool. Now, why Jool, you may be asking, and the answer to this question is actually quite complicated, but the only way we can reasonably efficiently turn our orbit so that we're coming around in a retrograde solar orbit is to steal some energy from Jool and do a massive gravity assist to help flip us around so that we're coming back around the sun in the opposite direction, meaning that we would then have a retrograde orbit around the sun. The rest of the vessel here we have set up with asparagus staged components. All these larger poodle engines are feeding into that central core, and this just means that we can drop 2 tanks at a time, leaving the rest of our tanks all full. So we're just completing our very large 2,200 meters per second burn from Kerbin to actually get up here on an intercept with Jool. So Jebediah and Bill can bid farewell to Kerbin. We're going to be leaving for a very long time. So it is always a good idea to do a mid-course correction as you're heading off to another body. This lets you just very finely tune your trajectory just so that you're going to come into the planet at the exact right angle. And yes, you can largely set up your gravity assists from here and then just fine-tune them even further as you get into the sphere of influence. So this is one of the more difficult parts. We need to set up a gravity assist. It's going to be a powered gravity assist around Jool, and we need to actually not only use Jool to help sling us around in the opposite direction, but also use Tylo. And what we're doing here is setting up that gravity assist as tight around Tylo as I can get. And this is very important because we can actually save ourselves a huge amount of delta V by doing this. Now, I wasn't able to get quite the gravity assist that I wanted here, and that is because the moon of Jool wasn't quite aligned in the direction that I needed it to be, but you can't always exactly pick where the moons are going to be as you come into Jool, but I did get this quite close. So we'll just do this small 50 meter per second correction here. This is going to set this gravity assist up quite well. After we actually do complete this gravity assist, it's going to drop our periapsis right down almost in to the sun itself. Now, we won't have our orbit completely flipped around at this stage, but very close to. Then all we need to do is do a powered assist to actually flip it in the opposite direction and boost our periapsis back up to match the orbit of Danny's vessel. Just a tiny inclination correction here just to make sure that when we come out of Jool's sphere of influence, we actually come out very close to a 0 degree inclination in comparison to Danny's vessel, who is at almost exactly 0 himself. Well, actually that's incorrect. I shouldn't be saying 0 degrees, I should be saying 180 degrees exactly, because we are of course traveling in the opposite direction. So Jebediah and Bill quite literally crapping their pants as they pass so close to the surface of Tylo at a very high velocity. So after that very tight Tylo flyby, we'll now set up our burn here to actually do a powered assist out of Jool to flip that orbit right round. This is still quite a large burn, but it would be nothing in comparison to the burn we would have had to have done if we wasn't using Jool to do our gravity assist at all. Tylo there falling away from us, and of course now falling in towards Jool. So we have a burn here of almost 2,000 meters per second. Now that does seem like a lot, but if you were trying to do this without using Jool to gravity assist, it would cost you at least 4,000 meters per second if you were trying to flip yourself from an elliptical orbit somewhere around the distance of where we are here from the sun. So to flip that orbit so that we're coming in to meet up with Danny, this would have taken much more than the 4,000-ish meters per second that we've already spent getting to this location. So I didn't quite exit Jool's sphere of influence there at the exact correct inclination, so a very small inclination change here now. So yes, this has been quite a cheap trip to actually flip our orbit. If you actually wanted to flip your orbit directly, launching straight from Kerbin and actually completely reverse your solar orbit, you would need to spend many times that to actually completely flip your orbit straight from Kerbin itself into a fully retrograde orbit. And you can see I actually did this with a very stupid vessel called the Goliath here quite a few months ago. The link is here if you want to check that out. So we're now dropping that apoapsis down quite far until we can get an intercept with Danny's vessel. This is around 1,840 meters per second that I'm burning here now, even though I didn't actually set up a maneuver node to show that. So yes, quite a big burn. Obviously we're dropping down from in between Eve and Kerbin this time, so quite a bit more delta V needed than if we were just leaving from Kerbin to Jool as an example. So we're now going to complete that intercept now that we've come around to actually meet up with Danny. We're burning another 1,300 meters per second roughly here now. So there we go, we have wiped off all of that relative velocity. We have still quite a distance to close with Danny. Our orbit is very similar now, but we'd still need to catch back up with Danny. So yes, small burn there towards the target again. A good tip here if you are trying to do some efficient rendezvous is to every so often keep pushing that prograde marker towards your target marker. When you actually want to start reducing your velocity, do the opposite. You want to keep pushing that retrograde marker towards your anti-target marker. By doing this, what you're essentially doing is making sure that you are always directly approaching the target. As soon as you start to drift off course, you will start to actually come way out wide around the target. So small corrections ever so often is the key here. So after over 7.5 years, we finally approach Danny. Is he alive? Is he still here to be picked up? Well, it's a good thing, isn't it, that Kerbals do not need food or water or any sort of replenishable sort of resources at all, because Dannie is of course here waiting patiently, probably crazy by now I would say. Out he comes here from his strange prototype V9 engine rocket there. And so that we can load Dannie up into our vessel, we first need to bring out Jebediah, because he is our pilot and he has got the only seat there in the little crew capsule. So out he comes, Dannie just nudging you out of the way there so you can hop in and steal your seat there, Jeb. And of course, as soon as you hop in, we'll transfer you over into the spare seat we have in that little Mark 1 crew cabin. Jebediah, of course, has a secret mission, which is to get a little more information about the competitor space agency NRS's vessel here, the V9. The NRS agency obviously bit off a little more than they could chew with that prototype, so yes, I will stick to the tried and true reliability of the low-tech parts. For those of you that are wondering how I've built that vessel, it's really just a bunch of low-tech parts all kind of mashed together and moved together into a weird sort of way to make it look a bit unique, but they're just stock parts. There's nothing unique about that vessel at all. But as a prop, it is quite useful, so I'll actually include a download of that craft as well as the main one here in the description for you guys. So if you want to have a play around with them, of course the actual demo little test vessel there, it's got basically no Delta V at all, it's hopeless, but for the purpose of the story, it looked kind of cool. Now, in order to reverse everything we've done to get back around to intercept with Kerbin, we first need to flip our orbit so that we're going back around in a prograde direction with Kerbin again. The first step of which is actually burning 3,000 meters per second to come all the way back up to Jool. Now, after we complete this burn, we're only going to have around 1,700 meters per second of Delta V left in our tank, so we are getting very, very close down here now. We are on our very last tank. Now, a lot of people would probably suggest at this point that we do an aerobraking maneuver around Jool, but the velocity that we will be coming in at will be so high that just touching the atmosphere of Jool would have you instantly explode. Doesn't matter what heat shield you would be using, you would die instantly, so we can't do that. Instead, we can complete a 1,300 meters per second burn here at Jool to not only reverse our orbit, but also completely bring ourselves up to intercept with Kerbin. Well, excluding a few small corrections after this anyway. So there we go, we only have 148 meters per second Delta V left in this vessel. Although concerned, the crew of our little capsule here, Dannie, Bill and Jebediah, very much appreciating the time they can spend here observing Jool in all its beauty. A very tiny adjustment there just to get our intercept with Kerbin exactly right. And after we complete this burn, I have one more manoeuvre node set up right up on the apoapsis marker there, which is going to just reduce our velocity just enough to do an intercept with Kerbin on this first pass around. We are now 18 years into our very long journey here, but this is actually quite good in comparison to some of the attempts I did. I had one there that was going well over 100 years, so yes. This can take a lot of practice. To get these gravity assists to do exactly what you want is some pretty hard work. So with less than 100 meters per second of Delta V left in our vessel, in we come here to Kerbin now. And yes, probably coming in at about the maximum velocity possible. Before you explode actually coming through the atmosphere, you can't really enter much faster than 5,000 meters per second without losing your vessel with a small heat shield like this anyway. And of course, as I say that, you can see me there coming in at over 4,950 meters per second, so pretty close to that maximum. I could have used that last little bit of fuel, but yes, I didn't actually have a problem. I didn't explode here on the first pass. We're actually going to take two passes coming through the atmosphere, one to drop us down into a Kerbin orbit, and then we're going to come around a second time, just so we don't hit that atmosphere too hard. In we come again for our second pass here through the atmosphere. Quite a lot slower than we did on the first pass, so yes, this should be quite simple. We shouldn't even get many heat warnings at all this time around. And just out of pure coincidence there, we're going to be coming down quite close to the Kerbal Space Center. That wasn't planned at all. We'll just be landing in the ocean just outside the little continent there that the Kerbal Space Center is on. Bill, Danny and Jebediah, I am sure very, very happy to be coming down here, parachute out there, and splash down there in the ocean. So the competitor space agency NRS very, very happy to have their employee Dannie Kerman back in action. And the crew at the Kerbal Space Center, of course, absolutely elated that they were able to not only upshow the NRS, but also complete this very historic mission. So we have two Minmus flags here, one by two very talented subscribers. These two managed to decipher the hidden video thumbnail message from the last few weeks. Firstly, we have this flag here from a German subscriber. I don't know if I'm going to be able to pronounce this name right. De. I don't know. I've totally massacred that, I'm sure. And secondly, we have this very interesting looking flag by TTY there. So thanks very much, guys. Well done for finding those hidden cryptographic messages. And yes, for any of you that want to find the hidden messages in this thumbnail and future thumbnails, yes, here's a hint. You can download the full versions of thumbnails with very many sites out there. So yes, good luck, everybody. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed that video. All of your support helps a great deal. Please like, subscribe, follow, leave comments and all that wonderful stuff. You can also, of course, follow me on Twitter at MarcusHouseGame, and we will see you in the next video. I was able to get this now quite close to orbital speed, but I had a new problem. As that booster stage emptied its fuel out, all of a sudden the Kraken rears its ugly head again. And if you saw the trailer I launched yesterday, that is the final clip from the trailer. So this is where the build process was getting pretty damn frustrating.